ESPN legal analyst Andrew Brandt with Armen and Levack on 104.5 The Team. And Andrew, you've been all over the Adrian Peterson appeal hearing. Explain this hearing to us. It's very confusing, and you know it better than anyone in the country.
Well, we had the hearing yesterday. It ended yesterday, but it'll continue. I'll explain that in a minute. This whole thing is, interestingly, only a few days after Roger Goodell and the NFL suffered a real rebuke and repudiation from Judge Barbara Jones, the independent arbitrator in the Ray Rice hearing. The advantage, I guess, for the NFL in this hearing compared to Rice is that the arbitrator is not exactly independent. It is Harold Henderson, who's a longtime attorney for the NFL, longtime confidant of Roger Goodell, because we're really back to where we were in commissioner discipline, where the appeal goes right back to the commissioner. The only reason we had a different situation with Rice is because Roger Goodell was a witness in Rice, so he wisely agreed to step aside, but we're back to where we were. As for the arguments yesterday, Peterson's claiming the same as Rice, that precedent does not allow an indefinite suspension. This is much more a public reaction to public outrage, not based in precedent, which was 2 games the max for domestic violence. That the act of hitting his son occurred in May, and the new guidelines for 6 games didn't come into play until August. So what we have is sort of a slap, knee-jerk reaction, and that's the argument. The second part is the more interesting part, a little more complicated. Adrian Peterson contends and has a tape of a conversation with senior NFL VP Troy Vincent where it was said, hey, just come to a meeting with our psychologists and we'll take that into account and you'll get time served for your time away on the commissioner exempt list. That is going to be under debate now because Troy Vincent was unavailable to come yesterday, and his testimony is now being compelled for tomorrow back in New York. And to make it more complicated, assuming there's no settlement between right now and tomorrow morning, which could happen, we'll be back there tomorrow covering Troy Vincent testifying in the Adrian Peterson appeal.
What's the likely outcome of all this? Does he get to play this year?
Well, he's seeking the same thing Ray Rice was, which is you immediately lift the indefinite suspension. The difference with Rice didn't have a team to go back to. Peterson does. If that happens, and again, I think with the non-neutral arbitrator, I don't give it great odds to happen. But if it did happen, then you have the Vikings would either have to take him or release him. And I think they'd probably take him, but they probably wouldn't play him.
Okay, so they would take him, they wouldn't play him. Andrew Brandt, ESPN legal analyst with Armen and Levack on 104.5 The Team. Also, Andrew Brandt, you can find his work at MondayMorningQuarterback.com. Andrew, where does the commissioner exempt list fall into all of this? Because didn't Adrian Peterson lose the appeal on that? Isn't he still on that list?
He's on that list while he appeals, but he's off that list after he either wins or loses. So, as we talked before, this was kind of a cockamamie list brought out of cobwebs. But listen, one thing that's very clear in this hearing, and I've talked to both sides, is this commissioner exempt list for 10 weeks was not, according to the NFL, not discipline. This is not anything about time served because he got paid. And he agreed to the list. He agreed to go on the list because he got what he wanted out of it. He got several $1 million out of it. The Adrian Peterson camp's going to have a hard time arguing time served unless they prove that Troy Vincent said that, because the list was not punishment. The list was a paid administrative leave.
Now, okay, so if he gets back on the team and the team doesn't play him, does he have any recourse to fight the team to get on the field this season?
No, I mean, that's just my guess. I mean, if he gets back, the decision will probably be next week, so that'll be 3 weeks left. Who knows what kind of shape he's in. The team's out of the playoffs. I'm just guessing that Mike Zimmer and Adrian Peterson would agree that, you stand on the sideline and you're part of us, but, we're not going to risk injury for 3 meaningless games. That's just my guess. And then we get to next year when he's got a big, big salary and who knows what's going to happen.
Andrew Brandt, ESPN legal analyst with Armen and Levack on 104.5 The Team. Okay, Andrew, you said if Adrian Peterson can prove that Troy Vincent said that. Now, you've also mentioned, and it's also on your Twitter account as well, at @Brandt, that Adrian Peterson supposedly taped that conversation with Troy Vincent. So if he did tape it and he has tape of Troy Vincent saying that, is this an open and shut case? It's done. He's going to win the appeal.
No, I mean, again, I think everyone wishes it was that simple.
Yeah.
You're going to have to figure out what that means.
Okay.
I mean, basically, it could go back to the discipline level before the new 6 games, which was 2 games. Then you have to figure out, does he get a 2-game suspension, or does he just have to give back 2 games of checks because he didn't play to begin with? So it'll get more complicated than that. And then there's probably also evidence, the egregious nature of hitting a 4-year-old child. I mean, this is much more complicated. Listen, I think the backdrop of all this is that no one knows what the heck's going on. And it feeds into the union argument, which is they're making up as they go along. Now, the problem is they're having these meetings with the union about a new policy, but those are going nowhere because the union wants to be, quote-unquote, collectively bargaining this, and the NFL wants to sort of tell them what they're doing and let them know so they feel like they're included. That's a breakdown. And against the backdrop of all this, I couldn't be in 2 places at the same time yesterday, but we had hearings in D.C. on domestic violence where Troy Vincent was testifying, and Congress, the Senate, was very upset with the NFL and the NFLPA about their lax attitude about domestic violence. So this has been sort of the season of domestic violence. Having said that, ratings are high, business is booming, so you tell me.
Wow. I mean, God bless you for keeping track of it as well as you are.
This is great.
It's a briar patch. Now, we also have been told by Goodell that they're going to unveil this new domestic violence policy before the Super Bowl. That doesn't seem likely at all at this point, does it?
Well, I was on a show on ESPN the other day, it's Outside the Lines on Sunday, where Jeff Pash, the number 2 man at the NFL, was asked that direct question, and he said, yes, it will be there. And it will be unveiled, I'm sure, not at the Super Bowl, but the week, probably that week. So, yes, the question is, with or without the NFLPA's blessing, and right now it looks without.
Armen and Levack, 104.5 The Team, your home for New York sports. Andrew Brandt, ESPN legal analyst. You see him all over TV, all over our Twitter timeline as well, at AD Brandt.
Now, I know that you've been so focused on Peterson, but what do you see going on with Ray Rice right now, this media campaign? Is there any chance this guy ends up suiting up now or early next season?
Well, I say no to now. What we just talked about with Adrian, we have 4 games left. I think this week's out, so we're going to have 3 games left. Do you want to bring that in? And again, it's unfair to Ray, but they're going to play that video wherever he goes. There's going to be the baggage. There's going to be protests. There's going to be people speaking out. And if you're a bad team, why deal with that? And if you're a good team headed towards the playoffs, why deal with that? So I say no to 2014, but I do say yes to 2015 for Ray Rice. I think because of time, you're going to sign him in April or May, or March, April, May, June, and you're going to have all that video played and all that stuff for a week. And then he's a football player. So I think he will sign somewhere. I have no idea where, but he'll sign for next year.
Andrew Brandt, ESPN legal analyst with Armen and Levack. All right, Andrew, in regards to Ray Rice, what was your take on the Today Show interview and Janae talking to Jamel Hill and Today Show, and they're in the kitchen and the in-laws are in there? Was this a ploy for the American fan to say, "Oh, I feel sorry for these people"? It came across that way. Was that the intent?
I think so. And I was on my way to New York yesterday when they ran that, but I think that this is not peculiar to sports or athletes. You guys follow the news. When people have missteps, they pick their media sources and they try to paint themselves as ready to come back. And I didn't see Ray, but I thought Janae came across well. what people have maybe learned that I did was these were high school sweethearts. They know each other as well as you can know someone. So I like that they painted themselves in that with the mothers and the families around them, because this is not something that just started a few years ago. These are high school sweethearts from, I don't know, age 14. So that painted him in a good way. Ultimately, as we know with football, it's going to come down to talent, and I'm not the best expert on that, but I'm told, Ray has had better years than he had last year. So we're talking about a potential declining running back. While still certainly good enough to play in the NFL, there's a limited shelf life there. As I said, I think he'll sign, but he's not going to get the multi-million-dollar contract anymore, and it may just be a one-year deal.
Andrew, I was looking through Twitter and I saw Jeff Schwartz post something that I thought was interesting, and I saw you had commented on it. He may have set an NFL record by being the first player on the IR twice. Tough year for the Giants, huh? I mean, I know you're not exactly the on the field guy, but maybe it'd be nice for you to be able to talk about on the field instead of all these courtroom nonsense for a second.
Yeah, I saw that. I retweeted that with Jeff, because if it's true, that's a really interesting thing, as people may not know. The past 2 years, we've had this new category, IR, designated to return, where a guy doesn't have to go away for the year. You're only allowed 2 of them per team. And Jeff was one of those for the Giants. I actually know Jeff and like him a lot. So he came back, and then he got hurt again.
Right.
So he's probably the first guy in the history of the NFL to go on it twice. It's just tough. I mean, tough season for the Giants. He came over in free agency, and it hasn't gone well. But I've watched a couple of their games. The games I've watched, Dallas and a couple others, they were in the games the whole game. So a tough year for them.
Well, and Andrew, you mentioned Jeff. We've had him on the show a couple times. He just seems like a great leader for this offensive line. Of course, we'd rather have him playing, but even not playing, just his voice, his presence. Is that what you've seen from him, in the past in his career, from what you know of him?
Yeah. Jeff and I joke around. I'm Jewish. He's one of, I think, you can count the number of Jewish players on one hand. So, there's only a few of them in the NFL, and we joke about that. But, yeah, good guy, and represents himself on Twitter well, and represents the Giants well. I think that's what people want out of players.
Andrew Brandt, ESPN legal analyst. Andrew, as always, thank you so much for your time. Very helpful. You mentioned it several times. Very confusing time, and you're helping us try to clear it all up, man. So thank you so much for your time today. I know you're very busy, and hopefully we can talk to you again soon.
Thanks, guys. Always enjoy it.